Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom 2.0 Beyond the Mute Button. We're so happy to have you guys here and to learn from two amazing women, Nancy Spears and Elicia Magana. I am going to introduce Nancy Spears today, who is an amazing woman and amazingly patient. And thus one of the reasons why I'm super excited to introduce her. 6 years ago, she started Nancy Spears' parents purchased their first house, and they quickly realized that there was no one to teach them uh, in a kind, respectful way how to do customer service or work on their computer software. And thus she started her business. So Nancy has been amazing in connecting with people and also helping older adults with their technology. And one of the things that she likes to say, which I love, Nancy, is if you don't want to train your parents, then I will. So, Nancy, without further ado, take it away, train us, and show us how you train others.
Thank you, Kelly. I see a lot of my networking friends here. So if you network for business, you are most likely learning Zoom. So I'm going to teach you some of the basics, and I'm also going to sprinkle in a little bit of Zoom etiquette, starting with the day before your Zoom meeting, make sure you have the link. I always put the link in my calendar, or at least flag it in your email so you don't wake up at 7:30 the next morning and you have an 8 o'clock Zoom meeting and you can't find it. That's what I'm going to tell you about that. The next day, give yourself about 10 minutes before your meeting starts. Walk into your home office or your kitchen or wherever you are working, and look at your background. If you have a virtual background, great. If you don't, you will see what other people will see. For example, that is my bathroom door. You don't need to see that. That door goes to my hallway. Lots of foot traffic there with my family. That's a distraction. When I'm in a networking meeting, I'm presenting myself and my business. So I want you to look at me, not what's behind the doors. When you feel good about that, sit down in front of your tablet or your computer, and I put my laptop on a box. Right now, you're seeing me from up here, not from under here. So I check that out. Also, check your lighting. It's good to have a light behind your screen. If you have a big window behind you, especially if it has blinds, it can be a little jarring to the attendees. And remember, you want them to see you. So I actually have this little light attached to my monitor from Amazon. Then when you are sure you are happy with the way you look, how your room looks, click on your Zoom link. You will then see your Zoom video dialog box, video preview box. That's going to really show you how you look to the attendees. That's your last chance to move your garbage out of the way. Join with video. And this is a little bit of what Kelly talked about. You will join video, you will see everybody there. And you can look at Eric's thumbnail at the bottom. It has his business, Eric Oxenberg Coincident Ideas. So I might be new to that meeting and I'll say, I wonder what that means. I'm going to give him a call. Or at the bottom of my thumbnail, it says Nancy, tech tutor. Maybe I should talk to her. So always good to put your business name in your thumbnail. And like Kelly says, it's the 3 dots on the top of the thumbnail. That, however, is only for this meeting. When you get on another meeting, you're going to have to do it again. If you want a more permanent way, David Crown of Stay Frosty Media, who's a member of the chamber, he sent me this excellent, easy to use handout on the steps to take to go to zoom.us and change your name there. So I will have my contact info at the end of the meeting. Let me know and I will email that to you. Now, how about that mute button? What is that for? I recently have a new neighbor across the street with a motorcycle. And somehow he knows when I'm on a meeting and my window's open. So if I can hear him, you can hear him. So if you have a gardener or something going on, click your mute button. Stop video. Now, today, we all look gorgeous, right? We got up, we did our hair, I put on makeup, I put on some accessories, but we don't know underneath, am I in my pajamas or am I in my sweats? What if my doorbell rings and I have to go out and sign for a package? I don't want you to see me running out the door and then you're left seeing my chair. So what I'm gonna do, you know what, I haven't done this in a spotlight. I'm gonna click on my, okay, Eric, you're my person. So there, Eric just clicked on stop video and now we see his face. I would so much rather see Eric's face than just his seat spinning around.
That is a profile that's saved on the website, on the Zoom website.
Yes, so if you don't have a profile picture, thank you, Erica. Eric, sorry. Click on your profile pic, and if you need help, you go call me and you just go to zoom.us, upload your photo. The reaction button is one of my favorite things. So if you're on a desktop or laptop, it's on the bottom right. If you are on an iPhone or an iPad, it's most likely tap on more. And I'll tell you why I like that button, because back in the day when I would do this in person, if I told a joke, I know I would hear someone laughing. Or if you like what I'm saying, you might lean over and say, she's pretty good, isn't she? Right now, you're all muted. I don't know if you like me. I don't know if I'm funny. So go to your, thanks, Eric. Go down to your reactions and give me a thumbs up or an applause. Thank you. See, now I'm feeling the love. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Alicia. That makes me happy. Moving on. At the end of the meeting, after Elicia is done, Kelly's going to ask for questions. As she said, you can raise your hand, you can say pick me, or you can go to your participants again. There is a little blue hand. You can click on the blue hand. It will go up in your right corner. Thank you, Eric, again. And then you mostly use that on a bigger meeting, maybe on a webinar, or if in your college class. And then the moderator doesn't have to look through all the thumbnails. He or she can just go to participants and see who has their hand up. Once you answer the question, you can lower it. That is raise your hand. Finally, screen share is the button at the bottom. It's green. My advice is, if you're going to share your screen, make sure you have it open on your desktop before you start Zoom. 2 reasons: it's easier to get to, and you may have things on your desktop like family pictures or financial statements you don't want us to see. So best to put your presentation up first. So I'm going to share screen. And start slideshow. So when you share your screen, it will look like this. It will give you options. So here's my desktop. Whoops. Here's a whiteboard, and this is what I want, my PowerPoint. So as Kelly said, I'm Nancy Spear. I teach older adults patiently how to use their computers and smartphones and tablets. This gentleman is 95 and she is 80, and they are doing just fine on their HP laptop there. Here's my contact information. I hope you learned something. If you want to contact me, there it is. Pre-pandemic, I did a lot of just fun things like emailing and texting the grandkids. Now during the pandemic, it's a little bit more necessary to teach them how to access my chart where they can find their test results and their prescriptions, email their doctor. If they are home alone, I'm teaching a lot of people how to use Instacart and DoorDash to get their groceries, and the basics of Zoom. Getting on their yoga class, getting on a Zoom with a doctor, very important things these days. So thank you so much. And I am now clicking the red button to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to introduce Elicia Magana, is an accomplished event manager who has spent 12 years in the events industry. Since 2016, she has owned and operated her own full-service event production company, Kima, which has become known all across Los Angeles for reliability and innovation in the event industry. From conferences to galas to fundraisers to community events, Elicia has taken charge of many high-profile, high-pressure events with budgets up to $1 million and audiences up to 10,000. Making it her business to best serve the immediate needs of her clients during the pandemic, Elicia has expanded her services to include online meeting and event production, as well as obtaining certification in pandemic meeting and event design for 2021 events and beyond. Elicia.
Thank you for the introduction, Nancy.
You're
So
welcome.
what I'm going to be covering today are the advanced features of Zoom. And those are going to be the ones that are most frequently used for hosting or producing events on Zoom. So Kelly sent a handout yesterday, and that's going to walk you through the event process. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the event planning process and highlight Zoom features along the way. So I'm going to do this from a beginner's point of view, as if you've never produced or hosted a Zoom meeting before. So bear with me if some of it's repetitive, and we're going to be, like Kelly said, fitting a lot of information into a little bit of time. So feel free to ask questions at the end, or happy to chat with someone offline if there's some things that you would like me to go over with you again. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, we're going to start with selecting a plan. So everyone who's on right now, when you sign up for Zoom, you're automatically in their free plan. But if you're going to be hosting an event that's going to have 3 or more participants, you're going to want to upgrade. And when you upgrade, the most important thing to look at is the number of participants that you plan to have on that call. So the first plan is 100, then 300, then 500. So you have to just look at what plan is going to work for your event. However, there's Zoom meeting and there's Zoom webinar. So for the Zoom meeting, that's going to be something that's more collaborative. So everyone can share their video, everyone can share their screen. There's breakout rooms, and that's going to allow for a lot of interactive engagement as well as collaboration, versus the webinar is going to be something that's for view-only attendees. So the only people that can share their screen or share their video are going to be your speakers and your participants. There are some additional engagement features like Q&A that are offered on webinar that are not offered on the meeting. So you have to decide, are you going to do a meeting or a webinar? Because if you decide to do the webinar, then you can just upgrade for your number of attendees based on the webinar package, and you don't have to upgrade to a higher plan for the Zoom meeting package. All right, moving on to scheduling an event. So when you're in Zoom, on the left-hand side, there's the meetings tab. And you're going to go ahead and select schedule a meeting. And it's going to bring up a list of fields. These are all the fields that it's going to ask you for. The ones that I have highlighted, I'm going to go into more in depth, but they're going to have you fill out all the fields here. Once that's populated, you can go in and add any security features that you want to add. So when the pandemic first began, Zoom didn't require a password, but now, as you can see, it's grayed out. Every meeting is now requiring a password, and you can use the password that they provide for you, or you can actually do your own custom password. Another thing which Kelly did for this meeting is she added a waiting room. Waiting room is super helpful if, for example, you want to maybe have some time before the meeting, you want to start your meeting maybe 20 minutes ahead of time and prep your speakers or set up a live streaming or do anything in advance. You can add a waiting room so no one's joining while you're still continuing the setup process. Another security feature that's important is going to be muting participants upon entry. I personally like to set this up because if you have something where there's 100 people and everyone's joining unmuted, it can be very noisy. And you just have better control if you have everyone muted, and then you can have them unmute themselves, or you can actually set it up where you're the one unmuting them when they raise their hand. So the security features that are in the initial setup are actually within the meeting as well. So if you're a host or a co-host, you can actually go in and you can set up some of these security features in the meeting if you forgot to set them up ahead of time. So you can enable the waiting room if you didn't do that ahead of time. Something that's not in the pre-setup is going to be locking the meeting. So you may not do that for this kind of call where people may be joining late, but if you're doing like a staff meeting or something like that, you can lock the meeting. You know, all your staff are on the call. You want to make sure it's secure. None of the Zoom bombers join. No unwanted guests join. You can lock the meeting. And then on the participants panel, so if you click participants at the very bottom, there is the 3 dots on the bottom right. And the same features that are under security are also going to be on that bottom right-hand side. So you have 2 places where you can set up some of those features. And then the last security feature that I want to highlight is removing people from meetings. So although you can actually mute people, say if they're talking, maybe they keep muting or unmuting, or maybe they walk away from their computer and there's a lot of noise going on, you can mute them, but sometimes people mute and unmute themselves, or they step away and there's no way to let them know. And that's where you can remove someone. But keep in mind that there is a setting that says if you remove someone from a meeting, they're not allowed to rejoin. So if you're going to use this feature and you do want that person to come back, keep in mind that you have to change actually in the Zoom setup. You have to change that in advance. All right, I'm going to move on to recording. So we're recording this meeting. You can set it up in one of 2 ways. You could automatically record. So if you know it starts at 3 and right when you start the meeting, you're going to start speaking, or you want everything to be in that recording from the very beginning, you'll hit automatically record the meeting, and you can record it on your computer, or you can record it in the cloud. Or you can actually select record in the meeting. So I've highlighted it here below. You can record on the computer, record in the cloud. That's what we did for this particular meeting. So say maybe in the beginning, we're waiting for people to join, we do small talk, but we actually start the presentation maybe 10 minutes in, then you're gonna wanna manually record rather than setting up the automatic record. And then as far as locating your recording, so same place that you set up the meeting, on the left-hand side, there's a recordings panel, and you're going to be able to download your recording. So you just hit download, you're able to download your files. And then something that's really cool that Zoom has that you can set up is you can ask participants for consent when a recording starts. So you can you don't have to verbally do that. You can get that out of the way. And this is what it looks like. So everyone, when you hit record, either automatically recording or when you hit record within Zoom, you can go ahead and set up, and it will show up as this meeting is being recorded. By continuing to be in the meeting, you're consenting to be recorded. And then the participant can choose to either leave the meeting or continue on. All right. One moment. All right, now we're moving on to promoting the event. So once you set up your meeting, it's going to give you an invite link. From there, you're able to copy that invitation, and this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to copy and paste this into, some people just might want to copy and paste this into their email, their Gmail, or you may use something like MailChimp for email marketing. So you can copy this information into your MailChimp. It will provide, if you selected registration required, so you can set up the meeting either as requiring no registration, so they get the link and they can just join, or they have to register for it, and it'll actually send them to a registration page. So this is what the registration page looks like. and it's fully customizable. So you can actually set up which fields you want to show when they register. You can have custom registration questions. You can also customize the confirmation email that goes out once they register. And then you can also customize the branding as well. So you can add a banner or a logo. So you can host your own registration site within Zoom. All right, moving on to producing an event. So for producing an event, there are a few roles within Zoom, host and co-host. So you can actually hand over the host controls. When you set up your meeting plan, you typically purchase one host, but you can actually purchase multiple hosts, but you can hand over the host privileges to anyone on the meeting. And that allows you to hand over full administrative control. So say if maybe you have to leave the meeting early or you want someone else to run the meeting, you can make them the host. You can also make someone a co-host. So there is a charge for every host that you have within the account, but there isn't a charge for every co-host. So adding a co-host is free. That is something you have to set up within the Zoom meeting. You can't set it up in advance. And you can have as many co-hosts as you like. But keep in mind that there are some limitations to co-host. So I didn't list all of them, but here are some of the things that a co-host can do. They can share their screen, they can start polls, they can spotlight a video, but they cannot, for example, assign participants to breakout rooms. So if you have like a helper or assistant or someone you want to help you with the meeting, you are going to have to make them the host if you want them to be the one in charge of assigning the breakout rooms, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right, spotlighting video. So that's what Kelly has done right now. She's spotlighted, so there's a few views. There's a gallery view is where you see everyone's video in a tile format all at once. And there's active speaker view. And that's where you see the main speaker in the middle. And then you see everyone else's video on the top panel or on the right-hand side. But with spotlight video, it actually helps you control everyone's active speaker view, because active speaker view is something that each participant chooses for themselves. They choose what they want to see. But when you do spotlight video as a host or as a co-host, you actually control everyone's view. So everyone sees the same main speaker. And I also want to highlight, I know Nancy talked a little bit about screen sharing, but I want to talk a little bit about videos. When you're sharing in a video, you're going to do two things different than you do when you're sharing other things, presentations or whatnot. You're going to make sure you select at the bottom share computer sound, or people will not be able to hear your video at all. And you also want to optimize screen sharing for the video clip. And that's so you have the best quality when you're sharing that video, but make sure that that's not checked when you're sharing other things, because it's going to come out very blurry. Live streaming. So the really cool thing about Zoom is it allows for live streaming. You can live stream to Facebook. You can live stream to YouTube as well. So if you want to share it to a wider audience, that's something that's available to you. With live streaming, you do have to set it up in advance and select that you want to do the live streaming, but you have to actually do it within the meeting. So that is one of the downsides of Zoom, is you have to set up the live stream while you're in the meeting, and that's something only the host can do. And that's a good time to use the waiting room when you want to set up maybe the live stream in advance and then let people in once you have that all set up. All right, audience engagement. So audience engagement is very important when you're doing online events. We're spending so much time on Zoom, online events, online meetings. You don't want people just staring at the screen. You want people to interact, move their fingers, like Nancy said, do thumbs up, clapping. We want them to participate in the meeting and be engaged in the meeting. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that Zoom provides that allows you to do that. The first one is breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are going to be essentially, like with live events, are going to be multiple rooms that you can open up for networking. You can actually assign them in advance. So if you maybe are doing a staff meeting, or you know that certain people are going to join, you can go ahead and set up the room in advance. And this is what it looks like. You can set up the number of rooms. You can actually call the rooms whatever you want. So when I hosted an event a few months ago called Morning Coffee with Kima, there were 3 topics that were very important to people. Audience engagement, what the events are going to look like post-pandemic, and then also pivoting their business. So what I did is I named those 3 rooms, and I opened up 3 rooms and allowed people to have the conversations based on the topic that was of interest to them most. So all you have to do is add their email here, and it sets up the rooms in advance. So you can also set up the breakout rooms within Zoom. So as an example, say we have 10 people on the call and you want everyone to be in pairs. I'm going to set up 10 participants into 5 rooms, and you can choose automatically. So it's going to be fully randomized, or you can manually do it. So maybe you want to put people who are within the same profession or any other common interest, and you can go ahead and match them up. And then you hit create rooms, and it's going to open up this screen here. There are some settings at the bottom. One of the downsides for me is that these are settings that you have to set up in the meeting, and you can't set them up prior to the meeting. So my personal tip would be to jot these settings down and know in advance when you're setting up the breakout rooms which ones you want to click, so you're not stalling the meeting or event at all. One of the features is having a countdown after closing the breakout room, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. So once you have your rooms, on the right-hand side, it's going to show all the participants. And you're going to be able to check which participants go into each room. So this is just an example, but it'll list all the rooms and it'll have all the participants on the right-hand side, and you'll be able to put each participant in the room that you'd like them to go. And that's if you chose to manually assign breakout rooms. On the bottom left is recreate. So say if you do put everyone in pairs, but now you want them to meet someone else, you can actually start from the beginning and do that process again and either automatically or manually assign them to breakout rooms. So the next step would be to open all the rooms once you've assigned everyone into a room. And this is what it's going to look like to the participant. Once you hit open all rooms, it's going to send a message that says join the breakout room. So Elicia Magana is inviting you to join breakout room 1, and then you hit join. Once you do that, the participant is in the room. The host is still in the main room. So this functions like a physical space as well. You have all your participants in breakout rooms and you're still in the general session room. And say if you're a participant and you need help, they're going to have a button on the top left that says ask for help. That's going to send a notification to the host and say, Kelly Trombley needs help, and then you can go ahead, it'll give you access to join the room that she's in and help her. I recommend helping her through the chat versus, if everyone's having an open discussion, you want to make sure you're not interrupting the networking and conversation. You'll interact with her through the chat and help troubleshoot whatever she needs help with. The reason why you do have to join her room is when you're in the main room as a host, you actually can't communicate with people. Actually, let me rephrase that. When Kelly's in the breakout room, she can't chat with you in the main room. So you have to join her room in order to be able to chat with her directly. But the really cool thing is, as a host, you can join any room. Say if you have 5 rooms, you can go peek in room 1, room 2, room 3, see how the conversation's going. Maybe it's a lot of silence and you want to maybe help contribute to the conversation and get them to talk more. But it's a good way for you to see and kind of get the temperature of how the networking's going. And then you can go back into the main room. One of the other things that I want to highlight about breakout rooms is you can send a broadcast message. So you can send a message to all the breakout rooms and you can say, hey, just a reminder, here's the question that I want you to talk about. Or, let's change it up. Here's a new question. Or we're going to end breakout room sessions in about 5 minutes. So it's a good way to communicate with all the rooms. Once you do that and you're ready to close all the rooms, say if you gave them 15 minutes and all their time is up, you hit close all rooms. And on the bottom right, you can see that this is the message that's going to go to all the participants. It's going to say breakout rooms are going to close in whatever amount of time that you selected when you set it up in advance. And they can either return to the main session immediately, or they can wait until the time runs out and it'll automatically move them back into that main room. One of the things with the breakout rooms is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. One of the things with the breakout rooms is when you're in that main room, no one can join from the breakout room. They can't come back to the main room. There's actually a setting in Zoom that says you can either allow people to join the main session at any time, or you can turn that off. So as a default, it's not on, which means if Kelly's in a breakout room, she has to wait till you close all the rooms to come back to that main room. So if you want people to be able to come back into that main room at any time, make sure you go into Zoom and change that setting. All right, moving on to polling. I know someone was excited to learn more about polling. So with polling, when you're in your meeting setup, all you have to do is hit add poll. All of your polls need to be set up in advance. It's going to open up this screen where you can enter a title for your poll. You can make it anonymous if you are doing some type of sensitive survey where you don't want to know who made each response. You type your question, you make it single or multiple choice, and then you put in all your answer options and you hit save. And you're going to go ahead and do that for as many polls that you want to run throughout the meeting. In this case, I set up 2 polls. So the poll 1 was favorite color and poll 2 was favorite animal. And you don't have to do it in any particular order. Say if you have 5 polls there and you want to do the last one first, you can go ahead and select any one that you'd like and start off that way. And I do want to highlight that the poll is actually at the very bottom. So everything that you're going to need to host your meeting, for the most part, is going to be on the bottom panel. We talked about security, we talked about breakout rooms, we talked about recording, and then we're now talking about polls. So all that's going to be at the very bottom panel. So for polls, once you hit launch your polling, it's going to open up a new screen. But say, for example, because it says, what is your favorite color? Red, blue. Say if you want to add green, you can actually hit edit, but keep in mind, it's going to take you back into your Zoom account. You can't edit polls within Zoom. It's going to take you to a different web page and you're going to have to edit there. So just try to be mindful of that and try to get your polls correct so you don't have to actually leave the meeting in order to make changes. So once you launch your poll, it's going to open up this screen. And what's super helpful is it allows you to actually keep track of time. So say, hey, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to answer this question. You're going to have a countdown in the top right. You're going to be able to see what people are answering, how many people are voting. And then once it gets to that 60-second mark, you can go ahead and hit end poll. Okay, so now you have your results. It says polling's closed. It tells you who voted and what the results are. And you can choose to either share or not share the results. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once you share the results. So this is what the participant's going to see. And say, for example, only 2 people in the 60 seconds answered and there's 20 people on the call, you can relaunch the poll. And that will start the poll process over with the same question and give you a chance to get more people to respond. But keep in mind, if you want those results later, which are going to be in your reports in Zoom, there is a reporting panel. It's going to show you the second poll. So say if you ran the poll twice, it's not going to show you the results of the first poll. It's going to show you the results of the second time you ran the poll only. And the last audience engagement features that I want to highlight are going to be the emoticons. And Nancy talked about this, but just want to talk about it a little bit more, is when you're building out your program, make sure you're including questions and polls and ways to engage the audience. So like Nancy did, you can do, how's everyone feeling today? Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling great. Or in the chat, where's everyone joining in from? We have someone from Chicago, we have someone from New York, and it's a great way to keep people engaged. All right, and then saving your chat. So just like with this particular meeting, we are putting our contact information in there and we might want that information later. You can actually just go to your chat button and there's 3 dots right where it says everyone and click save chat. It'll say chat is saved and it'll actually save onto your computer. So in this case, you can see it saved it into my documents and there's a Zoom folder and you can access that chat later. And I just want to highlight a few other things. They're not directly related to Zoom, but they're really important for running successful online meetings, no matter what platform you use. So the first one's going to be what I call the 3 R's. So run of show, rehearsals, roles. With your program, you want to make sure you put together a run of show. And what I mean by that is you want from beginning to end, minute by minute, what's going to happen during this program. So maybe you have your host starting you off, and then you're going to show a video, and then you're going to have speaker 1, and then you're going to have your breakouts. Make sure you're timing that out in advance, and you're rehearsing on Zoom at least 1 time. I would recommend 1 or 2 rehearsals if you're going to be doing anything on Zoom. And then the last R is going to be roles. So with Zoom, make sure if you're a host that you're not trying to do everything yourself and you have support. So maybe you have someone from your team or someone helping you keep an eye on the chat. Maybe you have someone else who's helping more on the technical side. Maybe you have a co-host that's helping you spotlight videos, and they're essentially your producer. So make sure you have enough support and hands to help you run the event successfully. The next thing I want to talk about is speaker prep. Anyone whose face is going to be showing on the screen, make sure you meet with them on Zoom ahead of time. So whether it's 20 minutes before the call, ideally not, maybe a few days before the meeting, a week before the meeting, you're jumping on a Zoom with them and you're checking out their audio, you're checking out their video, you're checking out their lighting and their background, and you're making sure that they're set up for success before the day of the meeting. And then also dual monitor. So one of the things about Zoom is when I shared my presentation, all of you saw when I put it into presentation mode. So you saw the PowerPoint and then you saw me put it into full view mode. Same with the video. If you open YouTube, you might see the YouTube page and then you're going to see me select full screen. So that is one of the downsides of Zoom because you don't want to necessarily show that step. So if you have a second monitor or a dual screen, you can actually have it in full screen on your second monitor, and participants will never, ever have to see you do that step. And that'll be the most seamless way for you to be able to run your event. And then lastly, internet. Internet is by far the most important consideration when you're doing an online event. And you can put together a run of show, you can rehearse, you can do everything right, but if you don't have a strong internet connection and your computer freezes, it ruins your meeting completely. So a few things to think about for internet: use a hardwired internet. And essentially all you're doing is connecting an Ethernet cord to your modem and to your laptop or computer. And that gives you the most stable internet connection versus just a wireless connection. And then the second thing I want to talk about was doing a speed test. And this is actually the last thing that I want to cover. If you go on Zoom, there's a section called System Requirements. So say if you're showing a video, it'll tell you what bandwidth you need in order to show that video. And what you can do is just Google internet speed test. In this case, I have Xfinity speed test on there. You hit start test. It'll tell you what your upload and your download speed is for your computer if you're running the meeting. And you'll be able to make sure that it meets the system requirements that Zoom requires for hosting or for showing videos. So I know that was a lot in a short amount of time, but that completes my presentation. And just thank you so much for everyone for joining. And I'm going to pass it on to Kelly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy and Elicia. So one of the things that you can do once everybody gets Elicia's information written down, she will also put in the chat, and Nancy will also put hers in the chat so that you can copy the chat later with the 3 dots at the bottom. Is Elicia, if you wouldn't mind taking yours down, then we are going to go into so you can go to the top and there's 9 dots at the top of your screen, and that will bring us back to gallery view. If you would like to see everybody, we are going to be talking about some of the questions that I have populated from what you guys are asking. Yes, you are correct. That is a lot of information for a short amount of time. One of the questions was, can we get the presentation? Elicia, I'll leave that up to you. The answer is yes. However, she is on mute right now. So
I'm happy to share the presentation, and I'm happy to jump offline. I know when Kelly was like, you have 20 minutes, I was like, no, but it's 30 minutes long. So I know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I'm happy to go over it with anyone one-on-one. If there's
also,
any specific feature that you want me to highlight.
wonderful. Thank you, Elicia. And also, we will be sharing this presentation with those who are here. So definitely you can go back, you can rewind, you can relook at the screens that she's sharing and all of that. So let's pop into questions right now. And Eric, thank you for answering some of them for us. You did a great job. So when you click on remove, does it bring up a list of participants? Alicia?
Oh, when you bring up remove, you're actually doing it on the person's video. So you're going to the three dots on the top right, and it'll allow you to hit remove. I know you guys can't see that on your end, but as a host or a co-host, you're able to click on the three dots of that particular person's video and remove them.
So there are some things that you can do as a participant or as a host that you cannot do as a participant. So some of these things that she's talking about, you won't necessarily see on your screen. But if you go in, one of the things that we recommend is that you take and you play around with this as you are a host and as somebody else is a host. Because what we did and how we started learning at the chamber is by practicing with somebody else who was on our team or just somebody else, period, or maybe a group of people. So
Kelly, really quick,
yes,
I just
please.
wanted to point out, if you are practicing, some of the features are not available unless you have at least 3 participants with their video on. So make sure you have a group of friends or family members, at least 3 with their video on. So keep that in mind.
Our suggestion would be do it with friends and family so that you guys can laugh, giggle, and maybe over a glass of wine. I don't know, just a thought. Okay, so the next one is, can you charge people when you have them register on Zoom?
That's a great question. Zoom's not set up for that, but that's something you can do on your own website or set up like using Eventbrite or something like that.
Yep. Will we be getting a copy? Yes, you will. And then the next one was going to be, oh goodness, I just lost one of the questions. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask if I missed a question from you? How do you add a background? Nancy, Alicia, either one of you.
Nancy, do you want to take that?
Again, you go into zoom.us. You can do that before. If you want to do it now, I believe, click on stop video. No, next to stop video is a little upside down V. If you click on that, it says choose virtual background. Now, not all computers are compatible with virtual backgrounds, so I suggest you try it out before a meeting. Right now, I'm going to click one. Let's see what happens. And am I in San Francisco?
I'm so proud of you. Sorry, Nancy.
I know, I was about to say, go Mimi!
To be in San Francisco.
I wanted to add that for, like you said, Nancy, not all computers are compatible with it. For $75, if you want to do that investment, there's a green screen that attaches to your chair. And that way, when you have the virtual background up, I'm going to put it up right now. Hold on. When you have that virtual background up, you don't have all these ghost limbs where you get cut off when you're speaking. So if you do plan to use a virtual background, you might want to invest in a green screen.
So
Okay.
Eric did ask, did Elicia mention as a co-host you don't automatically go into a breakout room. Yes, she did. But to go along with that, as far as the breakout rooms are considered, and Elicia, if you want to add to this, when I do events and we have breakout rooms and we have multiple breakout rooms, one after the other, the auto-populate option is not always the best option, because as Richard has been in one or two of our events, we have had him go into a breakout room 2 or 3 times because we did the auto-populate option. And he was like, hey, aren't you going to move me into a different room? And it was just because we were still learning the technology and understanding that the auto-populate is good for maybe 1 breakout, 2 breakout rooms consecutive. But if you go more than that, I would do it manually.
That's a great point.
And then, does anybody else have any other questions? I don't have any more in the chat at this moment, or if I missed any, you're welcome to raise your hand, as Nancy said. You can raise your hand on screen or in the participants area. It looks like, oh, Nancy.
I see
Susan.
I see a question from Susan. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Sorry, Susan. Oh, you have to take yourself off mute, Susan. That's the reason it's called Beyond the Mute button.
There we go. We got that. So I am running I know I look weird now. I'm running a scavenger hunt next week on Zoom. And I'm going to have a couple of people monitor the screens. And I want to make sure their screens are the same. So you know how you have page 1, page 2, page 3. And I wondered how the participants are chose to be listed. Is everybody looking at the same list the same way? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I don't have the answer. Do you, Elicia?
Can you repeat the question?
So let's say there's 20 people in the Zoom call. And I want somebody to look at page 1 and somebody to look at page 2 and somebody to look at page 3 of the group. Will everybody be looking at the same group of people the same way?
When you
So
say page
that
1,
if-
are you mean sharing your
No.
screen, or do you?
No.
No, I'm talking about
No.
just the grid. The
The
grid.
participant list is randomized.
Yes.
It depends on when you came in as to who you see, and generally your name is always on the top.
And
So-
generally speaking, Susan, you will see on a screen, if people have it opened all the way up, on a computer, about 20 to 25. On a tablet, you'll see, I think, roughly like 10. And on a phone, you'll see 1. And if you move the slide over, you'll see 4 to 6, depending on your phone.
So you're saying you could probably see 25 on the tablet? Like I'm looking at, am I looking at everybody in the call right now?
Not on a tablet. So each device that is smaller, you go down how many people you can see.
So are there a dozen people on this call right now?
There are.
Okay, so good. Okay, but okay, so back to that. So let me ask if the,
I can make a recommendation if you'd like.
Yeah,
The
so-
people can rename themselves and then just put a number in front of their name. And then that way, if you want to specify, everybody look at, screen 1, and then you've established who number 1 is, if that's where you're going.
it kind of isn't. I think because it sounds like as people enter the meeting, so if I entered the meeting and then my other person and my other person, then all
Yeah,
of
but
us
you
would
can
be looking
rename-
at the same.
Yeah, you can rename them. And then they can rename themselves. So if it's just a administrative type of hurdle, depending on if you want to, as the host, rename people.
So, but I'm not looking at renaming people. I'm looking at list how people are listed.
So nobody is going to be listed the same. And Susan, what I would suggest, just as a side note and something that we had talked about, is get on with about 4 or 5 people. Actually, I'd say get on with about 5 to 10 people and just play around with it so that you can have a better understanding, because us talking about it just on the screen is challenging. But if you go on with about 6 people, 6 to 10 people, it will allow you to say, who's in square number 1, who's in square number 2, who's in square number 3, and then you'll get a better feel for it. You'll also get a better feel for the hosting
Okay, and what, just one more quick question. If we had 1, 2, 3, the first 3 people join, then whoever populated after that, they would kind of see the same population. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not necessarily.
Kelly,
Yes.
if you're the host, actually, if you're anybody, but particularly if you're the host and you're organizing the meeting, I tried this. If you move your cursor over a person in the window and drag them to another location, boom, there they are. So in fact, you can reset who you see. I don't think that the other participants will see the change. But if you want to go A, B, C, D, and have people in alphabetical order, or if you name people 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can put people in order on your screen so that you always call the same people in the same order.
Gotcha.
But that isn't showing other people your order. That's you as the host. You can do it. Or you as the individual in the meeting, you can do it.
Okay.
It's not for everybody, it's just for you.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Wonderful. So without any further ado, I want to say thank you to Elicia and Nancy, because I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. And what a great presentation. You guys did an excellent job. I am actually going to I really appreciate your time, your expertise, and for putting so much into a very short time. So with that said, I am going to stop the recording and chat with you offline.
Thank you.